Monday morning, riding hard on the highway. Here we go, keep the vibe real, keep it live. Oh my. I think some people I've met in real life might start watching these videos, which mildly terrifies me. But who knows, they probably won't. At least I can pretend that they won't. But who am I talking to? Other than myself. This is kind of what I want to talk about. I want to talk about vibe and about ulterior motives and Lacanian terminology, surplus enjoyment, and just riff a little bit on the theme of friendship and awareness, self-awareness, awareness versus presence. I thought of titling this video. Being aware versus being present. You know, one of Zizek's whole shticks is to talk about the notion of surplus enjoyment. So he always gives the example of like a buddy cop show where you have these a man and a woman often who are investigating the horrible crimes of some serial killer, and how they need this pretext in order to hang out, basically. That if there wasn't this string of murders for them to try to solve, there would be no earthly reason for them to spend so much time in each other's company. So I was thinking about that and about how often friendship in general has that character. You're at school, you're at work, you have some kind of pretext for spending time with another person. It's a kind of arbitrary structure, device, that forms the skeleton of your whole relationship with somebody, often. I went through a programming boot camp over the summer, and I formed and rapidly unformed friendships, and it just left me feeling like I had gone through a Rube Goldberg machine. I'd gone through a kind of chemistry experiment. The formula for friendship is rather simple, really. It's proximity plus duration minus competition or care. Because oftentimes you don't really make friends with people in the workplace because there's a necessary sort of reciprocity that happens in the workplace where you're kind of in competition with the other person. You have to feel like you're both doing your part. But in an environment like college, it's the perfect petri dish for friendship to develop, because you're without too many external obligations or things that would put you at odds with one another. You kind of have a common enemy, even, which is the schoolwork itself. And you're more or less left to your own devices to solve that haiku, and if someone is flunking out of their classes, it's a friend of yours is flunking out of their out of their classes, it's still your friend. It's no skin off your nose. But if someone in the workplace is doing badly, then it affects everyone. And so, all you really need to develop friendships is proximity and a common enemy, and sort of the freedom to operate. In ways that don't really affect, in such a way that people don't have much of an effect on one another's livelihood or survival or what have you. That's one formula of friendship, at least. It's a kind of easy friendship, a fair weather friendship. That develops. But specifically, proximity as being a key element in this, I would like to explore. I watched Paul Talk's video. Paul Talk was talking about the death of his cat and had a private video where he buried his cat. He was tearing up a little bit, and it made me tear up a little bit. I was thinking about my cats, and I don't know, it struck a chord. It reminded me of all these relationships in my life. All these people I had seemed so close to, and a kind of longing for an authentic relationship. The thing that Paul noted about that experience with his cat is a cat is there with you every day, or a dog, it's there with you every day. And our friendships, by contrast, maybe in adult life in particular, are distant. You hang out with people every few weeks, at best, maybe. You have close friendships. You're lucky if you have a single person or a small group of people that you see on a regular basis. So a joke I heard was, what was Jesus' greatest miracle? Having a close-knit group of 12 people at the age of 30. And so, philosophy and making YouTube videos in its own way is a vehicle for generating a kind of convivial warmth, sort of warming our hands next to this engine. The engine has to be churning. You have to be directed towards something. This morning I'm talking about friendship. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about that. At a more elemental level, just trying to have this presence with another. I don't know how far you can take that. Is that too cynical? Or what? I was just fasting a good amount. I was doing it partially to quit smoking and drinking so much coffee. It was effective. I fasted all last week on and off, spurts. still feel a little weak in the knees, weak in the medulla oblongata. When you're fasting, one thing that happens is your sense of smell becomes way more acute. And I found myself not even necessarily smelling, but like remembering smells. Like remembering the particular aroma of a room I would have spent time in as a child, or something like that. And the sense of smell, of taste, is our most immediate sense, chemical sense. It's above all just this sense of presence. If you have a distinct memory of a smell, it's like you're transported in some spiritual plane back to that place and that time. And it's a curious thing because you can't conjure it up consciously. I'm kind of trying to right now. Maybe I could if I gave it my full concentration. What Nietzsche said about himself, again, is that marked him as different than other thinkers of his time, is his keen sense of smell. And there's something to that. If you're in an argument with someone, for example, say your spouse or a friend of yours, and all of a sudden you remember a smell, or somehow you get clued into the feeling of belonging with that person, with the group, that can sort of cement your relationship with them. I don't know. It's curious how these things ride under the surface of conscious awareness. I guess I'm interested in the topic of self-improvement in one form or another. But self-improvement can also be pursued for vanity. You can want to become a better person because it makes you think better of yourself. So there's a constant tussle, constantly tussling back and forth. The thing itself, which you would like to achieve, and sort of your surplus enjoyment of it. One thing about the life of Christ is that he would always retreat from his group of people. So even though he had this group of apostles, he would always be taking time apart from them. And so there's something essential about prayer and meditation, and standing apart from the noise, sitting in silence, which I'm not very good at doing, really. I made a video on Friday, which I didn't post, in which I was on the same commute and I was driving, and I really couldn't think of much to say. Partially because my medulla oblongata was all out of whack, but also because I felt like meditating on silence. So I just drove for like 15 minutes straight with my camera running. It was an odd kind of feeling to sort of sit in this liminal space, which is a theme I return to, is liminal space. Being online versus being offline. Am I on right now or am I off? If I got in a car accident right now, my phone got flung out the window, this would all be off the record. But so things are sort of tenuous. We rely more and more on this kind of tenuous relation to things. I think that the point that Zizek is making with regard to the economy, I'll try to avoid using triggering words like capitalism, what have you, but just try to think very clearly about what sort of services are rendered in the modern world. And more, there's a profit incentive to offer less and less tangible kinds of services. More and more sort of subscription-based, information-based services. Anything to get an upper hand, basically, or to minimize the amount of human attention that has to attend on something. That, the ideal is just to get something running autonomously, just get a kind of autonomous money printing device going for yourself. So your bank account just gets buoyed up at regular intervals. Like ideally, you're just super rich and you can live on interest. That's what the upper echelon of society, the sprinkles on top of the sundae, the 1% of the 1% does. They just live on interest. If you never lose any money, then what's the problem? But for those of us in the rat race, the economy as a whole more and more tends in this direction to either sell things that don't last very long, that break down immediately and thus have to be repurchased, or ideally to position yourself as some kind of entity that is just sort of like offering some kind of information massaging service, just like helping one entity get contact at other entities so that they can hawk their wares. Like at the bottom level, crap still has to get sold, but really only kind of as a pretext, because a lot of the money is just being printed out of thin air. So we're kind of living in this fake world. We don't know how else to function. Like the two investigators in a crime show they wouldn't know how to function in the world if they didn't have to chase around a criminal all day. We don't know how to function if we didn't have this stuff to do. I mean, at the bottom of it all, there is farming, and there's basically the basic substrate is energy, whether it's metabolic energy in the form of food, or a proxy of that, which is fossil fuel, because food gets transported across distance by trucks and trains and ships and so forth. And so fossil fuel is really the main coefficient in understanding the economy, the main base. And there's so that's sort of at the foundation of everything. But then On top of that, it's just this 3-card Monte game where everyone is trying in one way or another to get a piece of the action and to persuade the rest of the world that they deserve this, a piece here and a piece there. They just to get some of the paper notes, which give them access to the VIP room. But there's sort of less and less to go around. I don't know. Trump seems to have this ability to drum up positive sentiment, and you get a self-fulfilling prophecy effect. Power of positive thinking. People feel positively, things tend to go better. So that is going on as well. But it's, I don't know. I guess I'm just complaining about the workaday world and the way it deprives us on one level of authentic human connection. Because you do live in this fragmented space now. It's not so easy to have companions of any kind. And turn to YouTube or the internet as a substitute for that. But it's hard to even know what to talk about after a certain point. Things tend to turn in circles. I guess different people have their own predilections. I've got mine, certainly. And one tends to repeat oneself after a while. But that's fine. That's actually good, I think. It's good to acknowledge the rhythm and the beat of thinking. The great fallacy of Enlightenment 19th century style thinking was to pursue the truth as if it was something that could all be gotten down with a pad and pencil, like a recipe for chicken pot pie. You got all the ingredients, then you got it, and then wear it on your head for a hat. And more the inside of this time is that thinking should be something that has a sort of rhythm or repetition to it, maybe. We don't memorize poetry just to perform it in front of an audience. There it is. We memorize it so that we can recite it in our heads again and again and again. That's a question of taste, what we put into ourselves, what we seek to have place, to have a permanent place in ourselves. And it's a struggle against, the forces that want to dominate your attention, They want to transfix you on this or on that. Judaism, Islam, and Christianity each have their own ends, which in turn influences one's action in the world if you adhere to those belief systems. The reason that Muslims hate Israel so much is that it's a living rebuke to their whole theological system. It's actually at its root, it's a spiritual conflict. It's a theological contradiction for Islam, because Islam doesn't have miracles the way Christianity does. In particular, the Catholic Church has all these miracles, all these stories of the saints and so on, are supposed to inflame your love of God and your belief, and the miracles in the gospel itself. But in Islam, the primary miracle, other than the Quran itself, was the miracle, quote unquote, of military conquest and of expansion. And so to live in an Islamic world that is not militarily triumphant, and furthermore that has had land taken back within what's it called, the Duma, by the Jews. Like, as long as the Jews were paying a tax and were second class, it functioned fine in Islam. But to have this sovereign nation of Israel is a theological contradiction. It actually is a challenge of the legitimacy of Islamic belief itself. And so that has to be understood. And for Jewish theology, the Holocaust is a kind of theological contradiction. There's the joke about two Auschwitz survivors, or not survivors, two people killed in Auschwitz. They were up in heaven, and they were laughing, they were reminiscing. And one said to the other, he said, you remember when we were being dragged to the gas chambers, man, and your shoes were untied, and you tripped and fell, and you knocked your head on that rock, and you died like seconds before we were gassed. Like, you didn't even have a chance to get gassed, man. You missed it. And they were cracking up, and God wanders by and sees them laughing there in heaven and says, "Hey guys, what's so funny? Why are you laughing?" And the Auschwitz survivors retell the story to God, and God's like, "I don't see what's so funny about that." And they said, "Oh God, man, God, you just had to be there. That's just one of those things. You just had to be there." So even while the Holocaust is this kind of lightning rod for Jewish solidarity, it also poses an incredible challenge for Jewish theology to reckon with. Because the Jews are supposed to be the chosen people, preserved and so forth. I don't know. So the event has to take on a kind of cosmic significance. I don't know. I'm not saying anything too coherent with respect to that right now, but I do know that Jewish theologians have either erred on the side of saying that God was not present or was not fully omnipotent, or that somehow he is not fully good, benevolent. But with Christianity you have the cross, you have the crucified Messiah. And with that you finally get belief system that really can't be trumped, because every time one would try to create a theological contradiction for Christianity, it just gets absorbed. Christianity has this wonderfully absorbent quality, because when it fails, it wins. At the point of contradiction. That's the foundation of the religion. And so this is why Zizek calls himself a Christian atheist. Because he calls for secular people to adopt a similar stance. But we also have the resurrection. Just that people use religion as a way to fill that hole they feel of needing compatriots, needing to feel a sense of togetherness with other people, a solidarity with other people. Naturally, you can't have solidarity across religions if you're seeking different ends. Or you can't have full solidarity, but should we even be seeking that level of the thing in religion? If Christianity in particular begins at the point of contradiction, then the kingdom is not of this world. There's an incredible desire to manifest this kingdom on earth. How possible is that really? Is the fact of its difficulty to itself a part of what is supposed to be drawing us closer to the divine? cat, or like something happens that pierces your defenses for a moment, and it's like you feel these ripples go through this. It's like a subterranean lake that's down there, and usually the lake is still, and you can kind of ignore that it's there, but every now and then something troubles the waters, and you just feel these waves surge through this deep Loch Ness lake of yearning. And you just, like, with every fiber of your being, you feel this desire to just dissolve. You just want to dissolve like Alex Mack in that Nickelodeon TV show. You know, Alex Mack is this 12-year-old girl who had the power to turn into like a puddle of mercury, it's like mirror-like substance. She would dissolve and she could sneak under the cracks of doors and so on. She had other superpowers too, but there's just that thing that gets tapped into her. It's like you just want to turn into a mist. You just want the wind to blow you away. Because, like, when it hits, and especially when it hits me now, it's like this desire for something that is just so unattainable in the physical world, you know? Like, it just can hit me in such a way where I just know that I'm never, ever gonna have that satisfied in the way that I really want it to be. In this realm, in this world. Like, it's a spiritual longing. It's connected to my human life, to people I've known in my life, and my griefs about those connections in various ways. But it goes beyond that. It's like, because even when I was with those people that I have been separated from, even when I was there, it's not like I felt satisfied. Even when many times in those situations, I was wrapped up in a longing for a even more prior connection. And it just, it can just go back and back like that. Back into sort of the moment of your creation. The moment you were created by God. At its base, it's a desire for God. We use the word God so much, but like, when I say God, I really mean God. Like the God, the deep God, real God. So that's there. And it gets scabbed over. But attaining that, or coming to terms with that, or coming into a right relationship with that, is much more central, should be more central, is much more important than any kind of achievement. Achievement is only good insofar as it relates to that. So, I don't know. I'm starting to gurgle. I'm starting to I talked about similar stuff in a previous video when I was talking about loyalty versus betrayal. I think I said something about the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is the true church because it's the most loyal. It's got the deepest loyalty to God. It goes down the deepest. But it's not, at the end of the day, it's not about whether you're a Catholic or not or what. It's just about how clued in you are to that base reality. I don't know. After I talk for a while, I start to find myself a little insufferable because of this. Listening to myself talk so much, I start to see the ways in which my thinking starts to loop, to circle. It's like circling, trying to find a place to land. Rowing my boat with oars, ands, and butts. A trail mix of nuts and bolts untouched. Rowing my boat with oars, ands, and butts. Trail mix of nuts and bolts untouched. Migrating helicopters can't find land. Not in a world given as such. Is that how it goes? I wrote this poem a while ago. Rowing my boat with oars, ands, and butts, trail mix of nuts and bolts untouched. Migrating helicopters can't find land in a world undone and given as such. That's it. Here I am at work. Let the games begin.